TV, hosted the Breakfast Club on WLTH. He writes a column, as we all know, for the Chicago Gary Crusader. He's served as the first black assistant to the Chancellor of Communications at IUPUI. Published 4 books, 10 plays. Vernon Williams, native of Gary, Indiana, and he's taking his talents to the world. Vernon, welcome. Welcome to the program.
It's an honor to be on.
Now, what we were going to do is we were going to have our coffee table discussion. Vernon will be seated here, I'd be seated here, and we'd go back and forth with our discussions. So that's what we're going to do right now for you guys. Again, as I said, if you want to learn history firsthand, take notes. All right, Vernon, I'm going to ask you this question, because I'm kind of giving some highlights to you or whatever, but particularly we've got Gary Community School Corporation people here and others who are concerned with education and how everything happens and people come about. Tell us how Vernon Williams got started and became Vernon Williams.
Well, Chuck, I feel like I'm a product of Gary and the great minds that came before me, that fed into me. I have always had a positive attitude about what I could accomplish because I was always told by those who were my elders and those who guided me that, you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish if you're willing to put in the work for it. So my beginning is deeply rooted in the kind of confidence that I received starting at home with my mother, Dilly C. Williams, and then in my community, my extended family, folks that you're familiar with, like Eric Calhoun and his family, and then my school community and friends. We were blessed, Chuck, to have an extended community as we grew up.
And as Vernon indicated, he used the term "we" because what would have happened is we would have been back and forth trying to share this history for the benefit of you all. And I think, my story is pretty well chronicled too. And the reason why we're going to kind of parlay his and mine is that our careers sort of mirrored each other. We inspired each other in different areas. Of course, Vernon and I are products of the same Gary Community School Corporation. Gary Roosevelt High School, the greatest high school that was ever created in all of America.
No doubt about it.
And Vernon, I'm not going to speak for Vernon, but he matriculated at Indiana University, and at that time, coming out of the hood, Vernon was one of the few people who actually went to Bloomington, Indiana University, unless you were on a scholarship. And so that's some more history there. And with me, getting involved in media, because that's what we're going to talk about first quite a bit, is starting in radio, actually starting at WWCA Radio, having been really the 4th black to be employed there when it was the only radio station in town, following the legendary Vivian Carter, Lucky Cordell, Jesse Cooper, and myself, hosting a program called Sound Off. And so being able to do those things, and it's great to see that those things are carried on even a little bit farther. Now, Vernon, what I would like for you to do is now expound on your career. The Gary Post-Tribune at that particular time was a newspaper that covered mostly the majority news. We had a hard time kind of getting those positive stories in there about the city of Gary and the people involved. Vernon, it was legendary. I mean, we were all proud when we saw that Vernon Williams was actually a reporter for the Post-Tribune. So Vernon, tell us what that journey was about and let us know the impact that had then on business and people, and also how it has carried on even to this day.
Chuck, they say you have to see one to want to be one. I wasn't so fortunate as to be able to see a black reporter at the Post-Tribune that I could emulate. But I do say this, Jesse Cooper, whose name that you mentioned, gave me an opportunity at WWCA to start a program that I came out of my head with called Soul Heaven. And I was able to go on 15 minutes a week for every week for about a month. and to articulate the stories of Black soul music artists who had gone on and who had crossed over into the next sphere. So that was my first boost of confidence. Then Imogene and J.T. Harris gave me an opportunity to be the first teen reporter at Gary Info newspaper. That boosted my confidence tremendously, and it was a tradition that continued for scores, not years, scores after I had graduated and left Gary, Indiana. So that is a story that's shared by so many. And then finally, in high school, because I just want to preempt the professional life with the high school accomplishments, I had the first radio program on WGVE, where I later became station manager. It was called On the Teen Scene. And at the time, they couldn't dig it. They just like, no, that's not what we do. That's not what we do. We want you to read news. So I said, well, I tell you what, if I read news, can I have On the Teen Scene, which was the radio program that we started. And they made a deal. So even before graduating high school, Chuck, I had three things. I had Imogene Harris and J.T. Harris with Gary Info. I had WGVE with On the Teen Scene. And I had the great Jesse Cooper have confidence in me for Soul Heaven. So that bolstered my career.
All right, Vernon, I want you to hold off for a second. And folks, traditionally, I'm going to blame Jan for this one because this is a luncheon. And so here's the deal. You guys know I'm very adept at flipping. And so now we're going to pause for a moment because we're going to have our invocations so lunch can be served. And so I tell you, you think I wasn't excited to hear Vernon's accounts as well? So folks, at this time, to offer our invocation, please help me welcome to the podium Reverend Marco Burnside from the Crossroads Military Missionary Baptist Church. All right, Pastor Burnside. And please don't blame Jan too harshly. That's Jan.
Let us bow. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this occasion. Thank you for all the members in this chamber. Lord God, thank you for this food we're about to receive for nourishment to our physical bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, those famous words, lunch is served. And I want you guys to bear with us because as they quietly prepare lunch or whatever, we'll probably resume our program. And so I know every professional in here is multi-talented and able to multitask. So again, well, you know what? Let's do it sooner rather than later because I always do this. How about a round of applause for the excellent service staff and the Chateau people? Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys tremendously. Thank you. Now, Vernon, as they are serving, and they do it quietly, and people, we'll just continue because we have so much to cover.
Yeah.
Now, Vernon.
And Chuck, let me add this. It's not all about me. How did Chuck Hughes get started in broadcasting?
You know, it's ironic. I've always been You know, Vernon, I'm being totally disrespected by this audience. They almost are acting as though I'm salivating. I can't wait for it to get started. But no, the truth of the matter is, I was always an avid sports fan. And so I'd watch the game, watch the announcers, watch the sports folks and all of that. And so I just decided that was something that I wanted to do. And then, like you said, going to Roosevelt High School and having people like Y. Chambers and Genevieve Gray and people like that who told me, Chuck, look, you're more than a jock. I expect you to speak properly, this, that, and the other. And so all those things really helped. And so when I went to the fire department, I was a public information officer. So I was the person who spoke to the media, those kinds of things. So it became natural. And so then I decided that that's what I wanted to do. So I went to Midwestern Broadcasting School, got a degree in broadcasting from there. And what happened after that, Vernon, is we started, we were there. You know, this is kind of difficult, Vernon, for me, because we were there when cable TV first started.
Yeah.
When the Gary cable TV, when they first flipped the switch for cable TV announcements and broadcasting and programming, we were there. And Vernon, I'm going to parlay and segue to you to talk about how that all got started and what very innovative measure we did.
Well, we were approached by the technical people because they knew of our experience in journalism and in broadcasting, and they said, hey, we have a facility here. Can you guys make it happen? Can you guys make it come alive? We ventured, Chuck, to do a daily broadcast program, which was very bold. And we did it with regularity. And we did it with so many personalities that came into play that made it enhanced even more. But it was a bold maneuver. No one had done that before in Gary. And we approached it, and it succeeded.
All right, Vernon, what we're going to do now is we are going to pause for the cause. Because as they are serving, there's a little chatter, and I don't want people really to miss out on this. So we want you to just stand by, and we'll resume after the servers have served, because clearly when people are eating, they'll be able to really interpret more. I don't want them to miss any of this. So we'll just pause for a moment, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
He's before he passed. So all we can do is continue to pray for each other, because that's clearly how fast it could all happen. Also, I talked to Chelsea and Mr. Razor back there, and I mentioned the search for a new Gary superintendent. And according to Chelsea, you can go to the Gary Community School Corporation's website, which is Gary what?
GarySchools.org.
I knew that. That's GarySchools.org, because if anybody in here is certainly willing or qualified, but by the same token, if you know candidates, people who could be potential candidates to lead our school system, this is very valuable information for all of you. Again, as I say,
we want you to take the survey and tell us what you are looking for in a superintendent.
we'd like for you to take the survey and tell us what you are looking for in a superintendent. And of course, I've taken myself out of the running, so I don't want there to be, I don't want there to be an overflow of suggestions, you know. So find somebody else who might be as worthy. You can see it's dangerous when I'm a filler. Well, you know what? I'll take this opportunity. I always look at situations like this as an opportunity, because when we get Vernon, we'll be able to share a little bit more with you. Vernon and I talked about how radio, communication, television, those kind of things got started here in the city of Gary. Now, I may give Vernon an opportunity to elaborate a little bit about these things, because it is history. Vernon and I were part of an organization called the Lake County Association of Black Communicators. That was back in the day. And that's when, again, as Vernon talked about, there was a dearth of black individuals in the media business who could share our stories. So we all kind of came together as a group. And then we sponsored the Miss Gary pageant. And everything that we've always done has been centered around scholarship. And that pageant was a scholarship pageant. And we were proud of some of the young ladies who participated and clearly demonstrated talent. And just to name a couple who really, that you might be familiar with, Rebecca King Cruz. She's married to the actor Terry Crews. She was a former Miss Gary. Those of you might be familiar with the singer Kelly Patterson. You know, if it don't fit, don't force it. Renowned singer. She was a former Miss Gary, and all came through our Lake County Association of Black Communicators sponsoring this pageant. So again, I'm just trying to, along with the help of Vernon, just trying to share with you. Vernon, I see you, but we don't see you on the big screen. But there you are. Vernon, you just popped up.
I just popped
You know
up.
what? You remind me of Dean Roberts and Jan and Maria and everybody. You'll do anything to shut me up. So Vernon's back on the screen, folks. And Vernon, did you hear the update that I gave?
I just heard the last few minutes.
Yeah, I mentioned the Lake County Association of Black Communicators. Again, that was one of those give back organizations that spawned a lot of people in local media. And so Vernon,
Yes.
oh, and before we do that too, Vernon, I think, I thought I had seen Mark Powers here earlier. Here to go? Yeah, Mark Powers, your friend Mark Powers was here earlier.
Yeah.
And Claude Powers is with us. And so,
Okay.
in addition to you covering one of the most successful construction firms in the area, you have a personal relationship with them. And I just thought you'd just like to know that Mark and Vernon were here. I mean, Mark and
Well,
Claude.
I'm very gratified that Claude and Mark showed up. I really am. And it speaks to the linkages that we go back to in Gary, long before any of us were known for what we eventually became known for. We were linking together. Dorothy LaBelle, who was with the Crusader, long before she became that Hall of Fame, a journalist with the national media, we saw her as one of the journeymen working in the vineyards, trying to help make sure that we were covered accurately in Gary. So it's been a labor of love, Chuck.
Vernon, let me say this too. You brought up the very, very important Dorothy LaBelle. Dorothy LaBelle for the Crusader newspaper had a profound impact on both of our careers.
Yes.
I remember when I was a fireman, I was a public information officer, and I was trying to change the narrative. I told the Post Tribune, I told everybody, if you don't cover these guys rescuing people and being heroic, don't call me if one of them get a speeding ticket or something
Right.
else that happens or whatever. And so I'm proud of the fact that with the help of people like Miss LaBelle and yourself, Vernon, we were able
Yes.
to put that positive spin on our people who are literally risking their lives in order
Yes.
to protect us. So Miss LaBelle, I think she's tuning in, Vernon, and so
I think she is too.
yeah, here's
And
another thing. Let me say one other thing about her.
Yes, I am here.
Let me say one other thing about her too, Vernon, and you can coalesce with that. She is one of the nation's most famous black newspaper publishers. I mean, she's headed the National Newspaper Publishers Association for years, been the president. And what she
Right.
would do with people like you and I, folks wondered, Chuck, how do you get all these great guests? How do you have these relationships with all these folks? It's always
Yeah.
on somebody else's shoulders. Dorothy LaBelle
Yeah.
would grab both of us by the hand in Washington, D.C. with I don't care if it was Ethel Payne or whoever, Max Robinson, the greatest news people in the world, take us by the hand and say, hey, these are my guys from Gary, Indiana. I want you to meet this one, meet that one, or whatever. And what I just announced with Clorius Lay and Cozy Weatherspoon, yeah, you give people their flowers while you can. All right, Vernon, I know you want to say something about Miss LaBelle as well.
No, I was just going to say pretty much the same thing that you said, that relationships are everything, Chuck. And in Gary, we've had the unique distinction of working with each other and not pulling against one another. Even though there might be rival newspapers and radio stations and so forth, the commonality of our interests always took precedence over any other consideration. And that's part of the beauty that made us what we were in Gary, Indiana.
No question about that. Now, Vernon, we have a business audience here. And so I want you to call on your experience. And then who knew that a jock from Roosevelt and a fireman and city councilman would be a chamber exec? But it's all about business. We know that business is the essential lifeblood of any community. I don't care if it's Beverly Hills or Mayberry. It's the lifeblood of any community, and that's the message we're trying to send. And Vernon, when you were at the Post-Tribune, that was an opportunity for our local minority businesses in that era to gain the exposure that maybe helped them in their businesses, but also inspired others to go into business. And so Vernon, kind of elaborate a little bit on your role in that regard, because I paid attention to you.
Chuck, I seized every opportunity to showcase a local business in Gary. I saw people come into the newsroom who were being turned away by other reporters, turned away. And I would pull them to the side and say, you know what? If they're not going to do a news story, I got this column, City Lights. So why don't I just do something on your exposure through that? It's so important because we understand the communal relationship. They understand dollars and cents, but we understand how important it is communally for us to be supportive of each other. And Powers and Son Construction wasn't always a Fortune 500 company. Mayman Powers Sr. was working from the back seat of a station wagon, trying to make things happen. We lived through all that. We saw all that materialize. We know the growth process, Chuck. So we have a level of community interaction that supersedes that of anybody else who might be on the outside looking in.
No question about that, Vernon. It's amazing. Claude may not relate to this. He might have been too young, but when I played Little League Baseball, I played for Winters and Powers. Those were sponsors when I played Little League Baseball, and that's really how far back it goes. Vernon, also, here's what I'd like for you to do, because I don't know if we made it crystal clear, but I think we need to let the media and the business community know how essential it is that they both work collaboratively in order to achieve the goals that they both seek. So can you expound on that a little bit?
I sure can. There was a time when I ventured beyond my journalism career to start Paragon Advertising and Vernon Williams and Associates, public relations firms. During that time, I was blessed by Mayor Hatchett to have been given responsibility for the Small Business Development Minority newsletter. And through that, we monthly featured aspiring businesses and what they were doing to try to rise up and become recognized. These were, once again, businesses that might not traditionally be exposed through the Post-Tribune because of their limited scope of what they consider to be priorities. But they are people that we went to church with, man, that we went to school with, that we fraternized with their children. Their children fraternized with our children. So we saw Gary from a whole different scope than just journalists, okay? And that was a blessing. We saw people grow. We saw people expand their operations. We saw people be exposed to opportunities that would not otherwise be provided. And we saw opportunities that expanded the scope of what we could do in Gary, Indiana.
Vernon, I like always questioning you because I never feel as though I can put you on the spot. But so, I'm gonna have just a few more questions left. But one thing I would like for you to do is because we have a very young audience here. At least all the ladies are young. We have a very young audience here. And so what I'd like for you to do, Vernon, is offer a perspective or retrospective on the Gary we grew up in and what, in your estimation, it would take to help us revitalize Gary, Indiana. It won't be the Gary we grew up in, but in your estimation, and tie any threads that you like, how we can revitalize the city of Gary. These business people are here. They all want that question answered, or at least they want to hear an opinion. So would you be so kind as to share your opinion, Vernon?
You know, that's a very, very fundamental question, Chuck. And it's not a matter of trying to revitalize what existed in the past as it is to evolve in the opportunities of the present day and the future. As long as we can stay mindful of the kinds of expertise we have in Gary, the kinds of minds that we have, not just in business, because there are people who are in other areas who can contribute to the broader spectrum. But as long as we recognize our potential and not let people limit the scope of what we have the capacity to do, they can stand back and be in awe of what we can accomplish in Gary. I have, in all my years, I've been gone for 22 years, and I've never given up faith that Gary can not necessarily return to what it was, because how many of us return to anything, Chuck, but evolve into something even greater, even greater. So as long as we keep that hope alive, we can thrive.
Absolutely, Vernon. That is so very well put. I don't know if you can hear the applause, Vernon, that you just received from that response, but that was so very well put. Now, you know, I'll just call this maybe the lightning round. I will just throw some stuff out there, a couple of things out. Oh, let me mention the fact too, and I always do this because I always like to acknowledge these folks for their service. Vernon, we have our late county clerk, Mr. Mike Brown, is here. And,
okay, Mike.
Yeah, Mike. I don't think we have any other elected officials here. Vernon, I will say this too. I do want to acknowledge the fact that we've established, talking about media and communication, we've established a wonderful relationship that should benefit the entire city of Gary with WNDU TV out of South Bend, the flagship station out of South Bend, NBC affiliate. And they're here in the house, Vernon. They're hearing you.
That's beautiful, because we have mutual interest.
Oh, absolutely, because it's, as you so aptly put it, we're all in this together. And also, you know, we've talked about some other things too, whatever. And I want to say this too. I'm proud of the fact that I had a chance to invite, because, you know, a lot of times we talk about jobs, careers, and all of that. We don't accentuate the fact that a lot of these industries and entities are led by females. And I had the opportunity to invite a young lady that I met, and I was enamored with her career in a male-dominated area, worked with a bunch of males. And we have Ms. Angela Johnson, a female electrician. Raise your hand, miss. I can't change the light bulb, but she can wire your entire house and company and whatever it is you want to do. All right, Vernon, just another couple of things too. Just from a personal perspective for both of us, I want you to share. See, a lot of people have gone to these talk shows, they stood in line, they got a ticket, they could sit in the audience. But years ago, I want you to share your Oprah Winfrey experience, and then I'll share mine. Go ahead, Vernon.
Okay, well, I was the first reporter to write about the signing of the Jackson 5 with Motown. It happened because Sigmund, who was Jackie, was a classmate of mine, and he came up to me and said, "Hey, Vernon, guess what, man? We just signed with Motown." And at the time, I was an on the team scene reporter for Gary Info newspaper. So I said, "Can you ask your dad if I could interview him?" And then so he said, "I'll try." So he went and asked him, and he came back to me a couple of days later. He said, "Sure." Now, you know, this is before they have the machine running that is public relations for major recording companies. So here we are, just two people in a city together who happen to know each other. He happened to know and trust me, and he said, "Come on by the house." The house, as you know, at 2300 Jackson Street was tiny. It was tiny. You could hardly picture how people stood up in there and had dinner, much less slept and lived together. But you know what? It was just part of the story, Chuck. It was part of what made Gary so special. So I did the story with the Jackson Five. I became the first in the country to do their signing with Motown Story. And later on in life, when Michael Jackson became this mega star, Oprah Winfrey got wind of my history with the Jacksons and asked me to come on to her program. Now, how many people have gotten an invitation from Oprah Winfrey? So needless to say, I was flabbergasted. Went on, and it was during the time of the Jerry curl, so...
Yeah, take your cap off, Vernon.
I can't say that I didn't mark the era, but it was an experience that I'll never forget, and I was able to go on a show 2 times after that. So that was my Oprah Winfrey experience, which derived from my Jackson 5 experience. And by the way, I interviewed the Jackson 5 something like 10 times over the course of their career.
You know, I hate to always say that I followed Vernon, but he's kind of been a trendsetter for me too. My story with Oprah is when I was the public information officer for the fire department. And I consider this 2 poignant stories. It was my job to report to the media, this, that, and the other. And so one day the medics told me that they went on a call and they said, Chuck, this was horrible. I said, well, what happened? They said it was a young child, about 9 years old. She had been boarded up in an abandoned building in below zero weather. And so some construction workers that was removing the boards or whatever, they heard a whimpering in there. And they looked and saw this child in there, and her legs were frozen. Both of her legs had to be amputated. Her name was Darwin Carlisle. And, you know, it was like, wait a minute. I know I report on fires, I report on injuries. I said, but this story, following Vernon, I said, this story is just too poignant not to share with the media, and which I did. And so that was like her invitation to appear on Oprah. And so that was arranged. Oprah did one of these fundraising deals to help her with her prosthetics and medical care and all of that. And then I got one more story to tell that Vernon, you guys are very familiar with, chronicled. There was a fire on 11th Avenue in Gary. This guy by the name of Corey Elliott. Corey Elliott looked like a movie star. I'm serious. He would put Billy D. Williams to shame. Karen Williams is shaking her head. Corey Elliott was passing by, and there were 3 kids and their father in there. This guy went in there with a bomber's jacket on and brought those people out. And when the fire department, when we were alerted, and when I was brought out to report, he had been laying on the sidewalk, man. You could almost see smoke oozing from his body. And Corey was burned severely. And so I was able to get in touch with Neil Anderson, who was star running back of the Bears at that time, and contacted Oprah, and that was my Oprah experience. So Vernon, we both were not in the audience. We were sitting there with Oprah being interviewed. And I guess the best part about it is not for the self-aggrandizement, or the fact that, oh, we were on Oprah. It was for the fact that we gave exposure to people who really needed it at the time. And that included the Jacksons, because they were evolved, as you mentioned. So Vernon, it's really been great. I'm going to give you an opportunity, because we got a great audience. Of course, they know they couldn't leave anyway. I'd already given instructions to lock the place down. Nobody could leave. So we don't have to worry about people getting up and leaving, because it's just impossible to do at this particular point. But Vernon, let me say this. I did not hesitate when you had your malady, whatever it is, because it's your business, you're fighting it. And but the fact that I know that there was nobody else, I couldn't think of anybody else in this town that had the knowledge and the memory and the history that you had in order to be our guest. So I don't care if it's Zoom, I don't care what it is. I think it's been profound. And so from the Chamber, our board of directors, and all of these people in attendance, we want to thank you. And if you have a final remark you'd like to make, feel free to do so. I guess he made it. Oh, he left us with a smile.
No. You know, Gary is where my heart is. So anytime I have an opportunity to share thoughts about my experience with and my growth through Gary, it's a blessing like that. And it doesn't matter what the difficulties are that might come and try to supersede that eventuality. It's not going to happen, because between Christ and myself, we're going to make it happen, because I appreciate Gary so much.
Thank you, Vernon. Let's give Vernon a round of applause. He can hear that. And I got a feeling, Vernon, since we only covered like a third, maybe a fourth of what we could share with people, because they need to know. They need to know firsthand.
Yeah.
Again, as we're losing these icons, who knows? Maybe we'll have to get together and talk about how we can do another retrospective of some sort and share some more insight, because there's a whole lot more we can share. So again, Vernon,
we only scratch the surface, Chuck.
absolutely. Well, listen, our prayers are with you and your family, and thanks again. Oh, wait a minute. Got one other thing too, Vernon. Jan, where is it? See, I'm gonna let people know just to know that we expected you here in person, Vernon. Hey, Claude, come up here. See, when I have the microphone, I don't have to be polite. Hey, Claude, come up here. That's the power of the mic, man. What's up? Vernon, we had this appreciative plaque that we were going to present to you, and I'm going to read it, and Claude is going to accept on your behalf, unless you want me to take it with you when you know I'm going down to the NBA All-Star game. So either way we want to do this, but it reads, "The Gary Chamber of Commerce salutes Gary native and media pioneer Vernon A. Williams for your many accomplishments in journalism, marketing, and education. Your contributions will have a profound and lasting effect on the culture of Gary and Northwest Indiana. Thank you for being our featured Black History Month speaker, presented this 12th day of February 2024. On behalf of the Gary Chamber of Commerce, its board of directors and members, Chuck Hughes, President, CEO, Jerome Nelson, Board Chair. And Nate Shaw, come up, and where's Maria? And Alexis, come on up. I want all, come on. Any of my board members that's in attendance. Dean Roberts, come on up, come on up, come on up. And don't worry, nobody can leave, so just come on up. I want you guys, oh, Vernon, can you see it? I don't know.
I can't see.
It's a beautiful plaque.
Yes, it is.
It's extremely beautiful. So
I'm so appreciative of it.
So I'll call you afterwards to see if you want me to bring it to Indianapolis, or I know you and Mark and Claude, or however you want to do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, Vernon, you're not here, so excuse us for a second. We're gonna do a photo op. They're forcing me into this photo op. All right, Claude, we're gonna put you here. And now, Alexis, you get here. Dean, you get here. Maria, you get here. Dean, and Nate,